time, we call the meeting to order. We have a few directors who have communicated and said that they would be absent or late. At this time, I will begin the meeting with our ethics statement and conflict of interest reminder for North Carolina General Statute. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. I will ask if there's any member of the board of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us in this meeting. If so, please state it to the record. I'll start with you, Reverend Dunn. And I have none either. This time, celebrations, recognitions.
Thank you, Chair Bethton. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, parents and guests who joined us today. I'd like to begin our celebrations and recognitions report with a few recognitions of faculty and staff. I'd like to note that Marjorie Harris and Sharon Johnson have served on an advanced ed site review team for other schools. We just had our site review in January. In serving on these teams, Ms. Harris and Ms. Johnson were able to learn from other schools and develop professional relationships with colleagues in other regions. This type of external review allows our staff the opportunity to look at programs objectively and make recommendations for improvements back on our campus that can have a positive impact on student learning outcomes. We'd also like to take a moment to congratulate Angela Jenkins, Jeff Matisoff, Mike Ward, and Jennifer Cade. These four have been working to create interest and identify funding to field 4 separate teams for robotics for the 2017-18 school year. The coaching team is fast at work planning workshops and clinics to help students prepare for the coming season and to continue to build momentum for this academically challenging program. We will recognize our inaugural robotics team in a few moments. I'd also like to just recognize that our Odyssey of the Mind team will be competing this Saturday, so at this time I'd like to give a special thank you to Angela Blaylock, Angela Jenkins, Sue Wilson, Ms. Lashevitz, and Mrs. Watts for sponsoring and coaching these teams. They will be competing in Jacksonville on Saturday. We talked to you at the last board meeting about some of our students receiving college acceptance letters, and I want to give you a general update. Of the 48 students in the 12th grade, 26 of our seniors have already received an acceptance letter to a college or a university that they submitted an application to. 4 of our seniors have also indicated that they intend to join the military, 2 of which have already been accepted into programs with the Navy and the Marines. And today, we have 504,000 scholarships that have been awarded to our students. There's a little bit of double dipping for 2 students, so we'll clean that up when we get to the end. They've actually received 2 scholarships for separate schools. But at this point, $504,000 in scholarships have been awarded to our senior class today. We have 26 of our 48 that have already received yeses to one of the colleges or universities that they applied to. Our Honor Society inductions are underway. Our National Elementary Honor Society held their induction ceremony last week and inducted 30 new members to the elementary program, and they will join 34 continuing members. A very, very large program for our elementary students. It's founded on the principles of scholarship, responsibility, service, and leadership, and we're excited to continue to recognize those students that are receiving those honors, as well as representing those 4 principles in their daily lives. As far as special programs go for the month, Julia Bridges did represent News Charter last night at the Johnston County Spelling Bee for middle school and received 5th place. So before people get sick, she's in. We're very, very proud of Julia. She was very nervous. She's also a 6th grader, so we look forward to her reaching even higher sites in future years. During the months of January and February, we also had a couple of our students recognized for All-District Band. Martin Misty received 5th chair for the French horn in the Southeastern All-District High School Band, and Addison Clark placed 2nd chair for the tenor saxophone in the Southeastern All-District Symphonic Band. Because of that ranking, she actually will be able to audition for the All-State Band this Saturday. We wish her the best of luck. At this time, I'd like to call Angela Jenkins forward and whoever else she's going to call forward and help her out. Tonight, I would like to recognize students from this year's inaugural robotics team. With overwhelming interest in this year's program, we have 2 certificates to award tonight. The first certificate is from First Lego League for all of the students that presented before the judges at our regional tournament. The second is for the entire team that spent this season learning and growing together as a team. There is no way that the competitive team could have reached this stage, and we couldn't have been able to continue to grow our program for next year without the commitment of all of these students. So So first, we will recognize those who will receive the first LEGO League certificate. Students, as you come forward, if you'll remain up front until all awards have been called. James Evans. Joseph Evans. Holly Garrett. Justin Habercorn. Mario Hawkins. Rebecca James. Peter Clichetta. Sean Lambert. Bennett Nascimento. And Jay Warren. These students represent the competitive team that was able to participate in the first LEGO League regional tournament. And if you'll join me one more time in giving them a round. The next round of recipients are for the remainder of the NCS robotics team that will help us to continue to build our program and grow it into those 4 teams that we were discussing for next year. Again, please come forward as I call your name. Sarah Zuba. Isaiah Hernandez. Christian Lambert. Talma LaRouche. Sydney Matisoff. Mackenzie Nascimento. Michael B. Sherman. Kinsey Williams. And Abby Wilson. These students participated in all practices and rehearsals and all of the programming work, and so they are the founding of our future generation of robotics team members. So thank you, and again, congratulations. And before we move on to the subject of robotics, Mr. Garrett, I believe, is in the audience. Will you please stand? Mr. Garrett is not only a parent, but is also a staff member with John Deere and has been essential and critical in helping us identify the grant funding for this program. So we'd like to take a moment to thank Mr. Garrett. And helped us fund our second grant that we received for the elementary team this year. It looks like the students are presenting Miss Jane with a card.
Oh, that's sweet.
As we continue with our recognitions, we'd like to recognize our core value of teamwork. As you know, monthly we like to reflect on each of the core values that News Charter holds dear, and this month it is teamwork. Teamwork is about people cooperating, using their individual skills and providing constructive feedback despite any personal conflicts. The skills such as communication, compromise, and collective effort are valuable for future success in teams and the workforce. Students accepting awards tonight demonstrated teamwork through working successfully with others, able to promote a positive group experience and allow compromises despite differences. The kindergarten through second grade recipient is William Wilson. Unfortunately, he's homesick tonight. He is a kindergartner and was nominated by Ms. Hodges. He is a great student, works well in groups and in teams and in the class with students. He always has a smile on his face when he is in class and when he is interacting with students. He's very loving and caring with his teachers and classmates and is always willing to help out in class when needed. He is so sweet and such a joy to teach and have in the classroom. Please join me in congratulating William. Our third through fifth grade recipient is William McGinnis. William is a fourth grader and was nominated by Ms. Horn. William thrives while working in groups. He is kind, helpful, and always a role model. His peers ask to be paired with him because of his good nature and persistence to finish the task. We are proud of William for showing such great examples of teamwork. Please join me. Our 6th through 8th grade recipient is Olivia Shepherd. Olivia is a 6th grader and was nominated nominated by Ms. Brindle and Coach Browning. Olivia exemplifies what it means to be an all-around positive person and terrific student. She is active in class participation and maintains excellent grades. In PE, she is very good about getting groups to work together without seeming overpowering. We love her attitude toward others and the teamwork she displays when playing games. Please join me in congratulating Olivia. And our final recipient for the 9th through 12th grade is Tara LePage. Unfortunately, a family member is sick, and that's keeping her away tonight. Tara is a 10th grader and was nominated by Ms. Westergaard. She's involved in athletics and shows great teamwork in her extracurricular activities. However, no matter if it's a classroom project or sport, she can always be seen showing good sportsmanship, working well with other students, and allowing compromise. Again, we congratulate Tara. And before I conclude my remarks for celebrations and recognitions, I'd like to recognize that our Winter Sports held their awards ceremony last Friday, and 20 of our middle school student athletes were recognized as scholar athletes for maintaining a cumulative GPA of 3.5 or higher. In addition, 35 of our high school student athletes met the same standard. In addition, several of our students and teams experienced first in youth history accomplishments this year. We had our first time of the women's basketball team hosting the first round of the state regional 1A tournament and the first time that they finished second in the conference. We had the first time that one of our students placed in the state gymnastics competition. Megan Musgrave was able to earn first in floor and first in all round. We had the first time that we took 2 student athletes to the winter state track meet. Michaela and Tylea both competed there. And it was our first time having 2 conference champions, Griffin Lloyd and Luke Sullivan, and our first time with one of our wrestlers placing at the 1A state tournament, Alex Gonzalez, who actually earned 4th place in his division. So a lot of firsts for our program this year. That concludes my remarks for today.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. That was quite an extensive list of recognitions. and I say that with great awe and excitement. And thank you, Ms. Jenkins, Mr. John Deere. Robotics team and the athletes that were mentioned and the parents that have supported these children, I think that's big. You are what makes Youth Charter School, and you are what represent, and to all the marketing and advertising. Thank you for your accomplishments, thank you for your support, and keep on doing what you're doing. Congratulations to all those for their achievements. Robotics team is really neat to see how it's grown, and I know the time and effort that's going into that. So, again, congratulations, and thank you for the way you represent Youth Charter inside and outside the school walls. At this time, we will open the floor for our public comment section of the meeting. Again, to remind you that public comments are limited to no more than 5 minutes. You must have signed up on the table on the desk as you came in. At this time, we have one individual sign up to speak. As a reminder as well, public comment is for the public comment section of the public. The board is not required nor expected to respond to give answers, but to take the information into consideration for future meetings in advance as appropriate when necessary. At this time, I will call Ms. Jessica Bright. She is ready.
I'm not speaking a lot, so I'm going to hand these out so that y'all can read it out. I love Youth Charter School, and I've loved it since I've been here. Things have changed tremendously since we've been here. I've been here, this will be my 6th year. I'm sorry to say that I'm leaving my family. And Dr. Harris has a word named collegiality. I think y'all remember what that is. Basically, it meant that we were all equals and collegial to everyone. So we were all equal on the same plane. Recently, I was terminated after being on suspension. And it was regarding, one of the reasons was regarding an email that I did not open and read. So that was my bad. So I gave high school students a hard copy of something that I shouldn't have, being frustrated as a teacher. And at the anti-bully assembly, we had to not do a lot of what the kids had written because it didn't follow guidelines that we were given. Okay, so I can give these out to y'all as well. Basically, that's what I said on the top, on the very top. On B, it says Jessica Taylor ranks accomplishments. Okay, this is what I've done in the beginning of the school year. So, in the past, we have had to jump in and cover an empty spot. So if we need somebody to open the gym or lock up, or if the keys are somebody that had the keys, maybe get in. We had 5 people in the beginning, and I was one of those 5 people. So I was very trusted at this school. Okay. We also, I was cheer coached, middle and high school. In the first year, that was like 120 hours counting, and I stopped counting at that. So I love this school. This is my family, and I'm going to miss it very dearly. So what I want you to do on the board is just look over this, and if you need to meet with me again, I would love for you to meet with me again. But I do want you to consider that I believe that this has been miscommunication. Whether it's me neglecting to read the emails that I did send after requesting not to, were confusing but positive to the students. Did not put anybody down. And I've been in theater 30 years. I've got a theater degree. I've worked professionally. I've directed over 20 shows. So I know a lot about theater. So my mindset was be the director, okay? And when you're thinking that way as a director, you hear a comment or a suggestion or a dictation, whatever it is, and you hear it as a certain way. And if you regard the email, if you look under my response to that, I was still thinking that we were discussing it, because that's the way theater has been for me my entire life. So I love this family, and I'm going to miss y'all dearly. So you just reconsider in any way possible, so we don't have to take further actions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
I would take this opportunity to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted prior to the board meeting.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of January meeting. Any further discussion?
was here earlier, and the wrap itself is going great. Susan, you had maybe a little bit of an update there.
Oh, I have 4 tickets to turn in. Can I give them to anybody?
You only have 30 more to go.
I only have 1 kid. I have 4 times 1 kid.
Okay. All right, together.
Me,
Oh,
sorry.
student government report.
Oh, yes. I'm not busy getting ready.
Microphone, please.
Okay, hi. We're busy getting ready for prom. Say a prayer. It is April the 1st. It will be on Saturday night for the first time. That is not April. In fact, one of my seniors came to me today to buy tickets, and he said, I asked my date, and I told her when it was, and she said, are you sure this is not a joke? But no, it's not a joke. So we are in the process of ordering all the supplies that we need. We are going to hold it here again. Had a great deal of success in the past with it being here and making this place, transforming this place into an absolutely beautiful event center. We'll see next year. The students did vote to not hire a DJ this year to save some money. They have convinced Mr. Casey to use his DJ skills. So they wanted to do that in order to save a little bit of money. We had priced some out somewhere between $600 and $800. And we're still looking at, when you're talking about the junior and senior classes, they're still the smallest classes that we have. So in the future, it may be something that they can, and maybe even going out to different locations, event centers, as opposed to having this one get here. That's what we're working on right now. Anything else for the good of the cause, SGA? That's it. Sorry, guys, she invited me to the picnic tonight.
I don't know why.
Tonight, as far as the staffing report goes, we currently have 1 vacancy. We are conducting interviews at this time. The position posting will close this Friday, and we hope to have a recommendation for you shortly thereafter. As far as upcoming events go, as Mr. Neville reported, the 10th anniversary reverse raffle and silent auction is about a month away, just over a month away. Our early ticket sales are looking promising. Today was the official collection day for students. We said, please turn all your envelopes in today. Mrs. Peacock, our bookkeeper, got about halfway through the stack, and we have over 148 tickets that were collected just with her first counting. So as she continues to get through the rest of that stack, and as the stragglers come in throughout the rest of the week, we figure we'll be about a third of the way there by the end of just the student portion of this, and we still have a month to go. So if you need more tickets, if you have other people that are interested in participating, let us know. We'll try to get you an official update in the next week or so we can let people know what the purse is at this point in time, sort of incentivize them to continue to participate. In addition, students were able to get Smarties for turning in their packets. We got a little sweet treat for being responsible and returning their packets, and those that actually sold 1 ticket are getting homework passes from me. And so we'll get those to them by Monday so that they can use them. However, the teachers all agree that it's with teacher approval. So they can't just make any old assignment. The teachers have to authorize that it will be one that will be okay to use. A special thank you to the members of the fundraising committee, Eric and Michelle Brownlee, Wendy Dunn, Margaret Morgan Lee, and Richard Lynch for all that they're doing with their volunteer hours. We're actually growing that committee a little bit, so I should have some more names to share with you in the coming weeks. We're going to meet on Thursday to get a good status update and figure out what our next steps are. Our spring book fair is happening this week, and teachers have schedules for that. Senior activities are starting to amp up. We have our cap and gown pictures next Tuesday, and then all events of those kind will start to sort of domino afterward. Due to the limited participation this year, the senior trip that was scheduled for March 10th was canceled, so we won't have to worry about praying for our children in Florida. However, the class is going to work on an idea for a one-day event that they can at least celebrate being together and have some time of fellowship. Our third quarter will wrap up on March 10th. As a reminder, that will be an early release day, followed by 2 teacher workdays on that Monday and Tuesday. And those will be times where we're doing professional development and starting our planning for next year, or continuing our planning for next year. Our enrollment lottery will be on March 16th, so that will have occurred before we meet again. As a reminder, it's at 6 o'clock, hosted here in the Commons, and we are going to go with an electronic lottery for the first time, so look for that. Report cards will go home with students on March 21st, and we have 2 more induction ceremonies for Honor Society on March 23rd, representing the Junior Honor Society as well as the regular National Honor Society. So if you are interested in attending those events, we'll get all of these dates out to you. Model UN is requesting approval for their field trip so that they can compete in the Model UN competition in the Boone area, or excuse me, Asheville area. And Ms. Miller is here if you have any questions. You have that information in your consent agenda. So I wanted to have her give a brief report before we consider that a consent agenda. We can do that at this time. It'll be similar to the events that we've had in the past. There's team building activities, a tour of a college campus, as well as participation in the event itself. Yes, it's basically the same trip that they've done before. The Advanced Ed team, as I mentioned, was here on January 30th and 31st. They did a special meet and greet with our board members on the 29th for those of you that were able to attend. While on campus, they conducted 123 interviews with a combination of board members, administration, faculty, support staff, parents, and students. In addition to all of the conversations that they had in hallways as they were here on campus. They did their best to get into every single one of our classrooms while here on campus. During their final meeting, they shared their findings and recommendations. At this point, the report is not final. We have to wait for them to submit it and for it to get back to us as an official report. But their recommendations were such that 3 powerful practices were identified, which none are required to be identified, and they identified 3, 1 in each of the major reporting categories, which are teaching and learning impact, leadership capacity, and resource utilization. In addition, they are not required to identify an opportunity for improvement, but they did identify one for us, which means it's a practice that they like, that they think we can get to a powerful practice if we continue to put momentum and energy toward that. And then they are required to identify at least 1 improvement priority, and that is all that they identified for us, was 1 improvement priority. So all in all, it was a wonderful report, and I look forward to getting you the official final report once it's available. Our charter renewal update, I think many of us know that the Charter School Advisory Board recommended a 7-year renewal with no stipulations to the State Board of Education in January, and on February 2nd, the State Board of Education voted to approve that recommendation. So we have been officially renewed, now it's paperwork time. So we will be keeping an eye out for all of the emails and forms, and so do know that there may be some quick turnarounds on signatures and documents, and I'll keep you all in the loop on that. As far as enrollment and application report, our current enrollment is at 895, which represents a 2.6% attrition rate from our peak of 919. Our ADM that was reported was 917. So while it's not great to be losing students at this point in the year, it's not a huge obstacle for us. We did stop taking anybody off of the wait list once we released the applications for next year. So effective February 1, we don't call anybody off of the wait list anymore. Our application period for the 2017-18 school year opened on February 1st. Will run through March 15th at 12 noon. So if you have anyone who's interested in applying, please let them know that that is the very specific deadline. If it's not received in the office by 12 noon, it cannot be included in the lottery. If it is received after that time, we'll certainly keep them and time and dates down to them and add them to a wait list as appropriate once the lottery is finalized. As of right now, we have received 207 applications, and so because of that high volume of applications and the number of parents that will be calling and asking questions, we've developed a specific schedule for notifying parents as waitlist processing happens. Ms. Hunkel and the team have really thought very creatively about making sure that we have a phone line that's dedicated for this purpose, that there'll be staff that are specifically in place to answer those calls and make those calls on the days that those notifications will go out, and we'll make sure we share that with all of our families that end up on a wait list. The highest, of course, is kindergarten. The next highest is 6th grade and 8th grade. And then we're starting to see a little bit of a pickup with 9th and 10th grade as well, which is really encouraging because that's where we're looking to grow our program. I really don't know. And asking Angela, she feels like it's on par. addition, to make sure that we're continuing to market our lottery, we have information not only posted to our website, but it's also in the News and Observer and the Smithfield Herald, including their online advertising. And that's a new avenue for us. We'll be able to get some click-through and some data analytics based on how many people are actually accessing that ad as the campaign goes along. In addition, we're working with the Joe Report to get some online advertising, as well as we had a couple of parent volunteers take a big old stack of about 400 flyers and distribute them to area preschools on our behalf to make sure that those are all out there, especially in those preschools that are near our area or in the surrounding areas where we're already calling from.
For the 10 because you said that kind of in the area.
Right, so
we have a lot.
Our current 10th grade class is actually our largest high school class, and so they will more than fill the seats that we have available for 11th grade. Our current 11th grade, of course, is rising into 12th grade. It's in the 43 to 45 range, and so technically there would be space. If anybody's interested, they certainly can apply, and we can make sure that they can graduate. But in terms of specific direct targeting to 11th and 12th, we have not taken direct steps. The board would like us to.
What's your high school area? So it's 9th grade?
9th grade and 10th grade would be the places where we're projecting it. Specifically, in the senior class, we don't generally try to draw students in because we know that the change of our curriculum and the advanced graduation requirements that we have may be difficult for them to make.
I would just say that because, they're getting rid of middle college, so that's a huge population of people who are highly upset when they were looking at exit.
Yeah. And certainly if we get those applications, we'll look at them if we need to increase our enrollment in our 11th grade or 12th grade. Certainly work to manage that, but that's where space is available. We'll certainly look into where we can maybe target those populations. Looking at our intent to return forms, this is sort of where our numbers are coming from. We had an overwhelming majority of our students, minus maybe 10 or so, that said they'll be back next year. In addition, that also allowed us to capture information about sibling requests. That's part of why we don't have a lot of projected space, because we have 33 siblings currently on the request distributed across grades 1 through 10, in addition to about 48 from kindergarten seats. So that fills up to 72 seats, siblings and staff. Those will come in ways that this particular year will be a banner year for families to add another student to the mix. With no new classroom space expected for next year, enrollment is expected to grow modestly. We continue to fill our remaining high school seats. Again, some of this is a bit redundant. Just as a reminder, we did set our maximum enrollment at 944 with DEI. We're targeting somewhere between 925 and 944 for actual enrollment. We could have gone up to, I think, 1,031, but just looking at the fact that we had no additional space, the likelihood that we would grow that much would make us have to revert funds in the second distribution. At this point, I am prepared to move into my official report. At this point, I am prepared to move into the academic performance report unless you needed to do anything with the board. Again, that portion of our report.
Yeah, just to we have two items on the consent agenda that we mentioned. Unless there's a need to discuss.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Have heard none. Consent items are approved. And if you want to go to
You'll find a printed copy of this report in your materials. Family members, that will direct your attention to the screen. After today's presentation, we'll be able to get this available online, but we were fine-tuning it as of this morning. The academic performance, I'll go slow. The academic performance report was requested through the academic committee as well as from the full board regarding way to annually, if not more frequently, measure our performance and success as a school. What you'll see in the presentation is I start by harkening back to our school mission, that News Charter School provides innovative approaches to learning by focusing on high academic standards, critical and creative thinking skills, character development, and multicultural experiences for grades K through 12. All of our stakeholders work together cooperatively to ensure that NCS community empowers every individual to achieve his or her maximum potential. I need my bottle of water. As far as what the performance report is intended to do, the goal of the report is to first start by assessing our academic performance trends reflective of our school mission, meaning how are we doing at focusing on high academic standards, critical and creative thinking skills, and how are we doing at making sure that our students achieve his or her maximum potential. In addition, our approach to this process was going to allow us to identify areas where additional data is required or needed to make sure that we can do an even better job of assessing our ability to meet our performance standards over time. With our approach, we looked at multi-year trend analysis, one, so that we could see if there were any trends that were predictable or projected, in addition to see if there are point-in-time instances that allow us to identify that perhaps a teacher issue, or perhaps a cohort change issue, or perhaps a curriculum change or testing change issue is impacting these trends. When we look at data such as this, looking at individual single-year points of data help us to understand how we compare to our neighbors around us, but they don't help us to understand how well we are doing at growing on our own campus and moving our individual cohorts forward. Will we be able to get up on the screen?
I'm working on it. I'm going to try it for mine.
I haven't shown any full graphs yet, I'm just reading. As far as the findings go, we took a SWOT analysis approach, meaning that we looked for our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. In addition, we identified areas for needed improvement in data collection. As we go through the report, I start with a brief snapshot. By no means am I indicating that these are the data that we'd like to look at over time, but it is a snapshot of data that we have available. At this point, I'd like to sort of discuss the difference between lagging and leading indicators. I believe most of us in the audience that have worked with data before have heard those terms. Most of the data that I'm going to be able to go through today, unfortunately, are lagging indicators. They are the kind of data that we collect at the end of the school year or at the end of an experience, and they let us know how well we did at achieving our intended objectives in the beginning. What we're looking forward to is identifying more and more ways to assess and gather leading indicators where it's a point in time during the school year and we can adjust and flex and make sure that we're changing up our instructional strategies to meet students right where they are live and in time. So the majority of the data points that we're going to look at today are what I would call lagging indicators. There's one or two that are leading indicators and leading us on the right track. But in that snapshot, you're going to be seeing quite a few lagging indicators. As we go through the presentation, okay. So there's your first graph. It should be on slide 4. As we go through the presentation, we'll start with a snapshot, then we'll look at our EOG proficiency, we'll look at our EOC proficiency, we'll look at our ACT college readiness benchmark proficiency, sort of. We'll look at our AP participation and score results, and then we'll also look at additional data sources that are under review. For those in the audience that may or may not be familiar with all of these lovely educational acronyms, just a quick reminder that EOG stands for end of grade. This is an assessment that's created by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and is administered to 3rd through 8th grade students at the end of the school year based on the grade they are enrolled in for that year. So if a student grade accelerates, then they'll take the assessment for the grade they've accelerated into. If a student is following a traditional path, then they'll take the assessment for the grade that they're in. What that means is that those of us that are experiencing situations where a student may be advancing in one particular area and accessing high school curriculum in middle school, they'll still be taking the appropriate grade level EOG while also taking maybe the grade level course-specific EOC. It's a PI constraint that we're still working under. We're petition for waivers where we can, but for right now, that would happen. EOC then, as a reminder, is end of course, and the end of course exams are for specifically high school courses or designated high school courses. At the inception, these exams were offered for a multitude of high school courses. We're now down to 3, English 2, Math 1, and Biology. ACT is the nationally normed test that's given throughout the country as well as abroad. And what they take is an approach of looking at college readiness benchmarks. There's also score reports that we can look at, but this I think is a more meaningful data point for us to assess. Because what this is an indication of is that if the student scores at a particular level in a particular area, they have a good chance of being able to earn a C or better in a similar course in college in their first year. We would like for these percent benchmarks to be as close to 100 as possible for our students so that we know that they'll be successful in that first year of college. So that's kind of what you're looking for with that data set. And as far as the AP participation and score results, that stands for advanced placement. These are assessments that are developed by the College Board, and they are directly aligned with curriculum that's developed by the College Board. And when students take these classes, the assumption is that it's the same or equivalent of a college level class in that subject area. The exam tests whether or not they've been able to show that they know and have learned and express the learning of the material for the course. For AP scores, these actually can be tied to college credit. If a student earns a 3, 4, or 5, colleges and universities can determine whether or not they will exempt the student from a course and or assign them credit for the course on the transcript. So with that, we'll look at the snapshot. Board members, I also gave you a single page of the snapshot so that you can see that in a little bit larger detail. This is not an ideal format for this type of data. Certainly our ranges are not perfect, but it's our sort of first brush at trying to get you down to a one-page thing that we can capture over here. Over time, I would predict that the majority of these data would turn over and we would replace them with those leading indicators that I'm talking about, but it gives you an idea of the way we want to try to present for you on at least an annual basis. Something you can fold up and put in your pocket and pull out and know where we are.
Just a quick comment, because in all the data and your additional data sources, there's no actual internal grades for GPA. Was that a consideration?
Internal grades and GPA are a consideration. We also see that those sometimes conflict with the test score, so the next level of our analysis will include those because we're finding conflicts between students who are earning high letter grades but are scoring low on their exams. So we're going to be looking at actually comparing the two. We just didn't have that ready for today to match those up. But yes, thank you for bringing it up. As we look at the slide 6, our overall trends and areas for improvement, I'll try not to spend too much time on the word slides and let y'all read those later once it all gets posted, and I'll try to talk about them while the graphics are up, but I wanted to give you this overall layout. When we looked at the data, we tried on the left to really just be objective and talk about what does the data show us. Not make any assumptions, not make any determinations as to what may have caused the data to do what it's doing or to behave the way that it's behaving, but simply what do we see in the data. So as we look at the general trend overall as we progress through this report, we're going to see that the general trends generally demonstrate overall improvement between the 2013 testing year and the 2016 testing year. I do need to caution us with that point, particularly with reference to the EOG scores, because the tests were renormed and re-referenced in 2012-13, so it is expected that students would have had lower scores in that first year. That's also why we didn't go back any further, because we knew that the validation of trending those results would be a little off because the numbering would have changed. So growing from 2012-13 up to 2015-16 is expected in any school environment because the students get used to the tests, the teachers get used to the new curriculum and material. What we're looking for are really strong improvements year over year. You'll also notice that we have variable performance in math over time in all of the assessment data that's available to us. That's very concerning to us, but I'm not going to say that here on trends. I'm just going to say we notice that we have variable performance year over year. We do also notice with the data that consistently we're having consistent performance with English and reading over time. And in addition, we have consistent performance in science over time. So our areas for improvement. You'll see that the first bullet there is evaluate resource needs. You'll see this come up again and again as we look at each individual set of data. But as far as the evaluation of resource needs, we need to know that that's not just stuff. That's human capital, that's curriculum, that's making sure that we have everything in place so that the student has the best learning environment. And so if that means changing the way that we teach, changing who is teaching what, if that means looking for differently certified people who have different skill sets, those sorts of things, in addition to evaluating our curriculum, in addition to evaluating the way that we show our assessments and the way that we benchmark and measure. So when I say resources, I'm not always talking about things that are in place to make the student learning environment correct for the students that are in that room. We also know that we need to have targeted professional development. This is actually a similar finding to the advanced ed review team, but we know, all of us know, that if we continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, it's the very definition of insanity. So we need to make sure that we're looking at what works well, look at what may not be being learned, and that, and that's essentially what continuous improvement is based on. Part of why we're doing our fundraising effort is to get those extra funds available so we can have really intense professional development available for our teachers, where we can coordinate for weeks at a time over the summer versus trying to squeeze it in an hour a day during the regular work schedule. We also know that we need coordinated and persistent vertical teaming and curriculum alignment. I know these are words we've heard before, but what we really mean is it's time to be very intentional, hold everybody accountable, and to make sure that when these teams are getting together, they're getting guidance and direction from leadership as well as from within. You'll notice that I have some interesting groupings up there for grade. What we're finding is that kindergarten and first grade really need to partner together so that we can make sure that there's a nice fluid transition between those kindergarten competency expectations in first grade. We also know that second and fourth need to have a similar relationship, but that would ultimately be organized into elementary school. So our elementary school of the future would probably end at fourth grade, or our elementary academy or learning center will come up with some terms. Our 5th through 8th grade then would start to represent our middle school. I've been talking with our 5th grade teachers and looking at assessment data and everything else that we've been evaluating. It's really critical that if we're going to get our students prepared for honors level college prep curriculum, that we get them uplifting and moving into those higher order thinking groups sooner than later. This also gives us a bigger resource team so that when teachers are working together, they have more ability to stretch the curriculum top to bottom and identify that the students in this particular grade that access that particular material, slide them over and go access that material without having to cross all these bureaucratic lines from a school perspective. We also need to establish clear aspirational goals. We talk a lot about improving. We talk a lot about doing better. We talk a lot about having elevated proficiency scores, but we don't always put a number on paper, and we don't always say something aspirational. We get afraid. And we should, because if you put something out there like, we're going to raise $100,000, and we don't, that's okay. That just means we had a goal, we tried what we could to get there, and we got as far as we could. So similarly, we need to talk about being either, if we care about the NC World School Report Card, and we care about that rating system, then we should say we're going to try to be an A, because we're already being A. A is as high as we can get, so let's go for that A. If we're talking about proficiency, if students are going to be asked to move forward into curriculum and onto the higher level thinking that goes with that next level of curriculum, why would we ask them to advance if they weren't showing something on the order of 90 to 95% proficiency before moving forward? Now, is the EOG the right way to assess that proficiency? Probably not in and of itself, but a combination of assessments that we can build as a portfolio for the student to show that we have 90% confidence that they have accumulated and mastered all of the competencies that we think they should for that particular space before we advance them on to the next one. So, if we look at these in detail, and please let me know, board members, how much time you want me to spend on each of these, because essentially we're taking that snapshot and looking at them in detail. I do have this one slide that I'll show you twice that actually compares data for a single year. Normally I would never do this, but the only reason I do this here is to show that while we're going to talk about how well we're doing or where we'd like to see ourselves grow, we're still doing better than the state. So as far as comparing our results to the state of North Carolina, we're looking at slide 7. Our EOG math scores, our EOG reading scores, and our EOG science scores for the 15-16 school year and for the majority of the years leading up to the 15-16 school year outpace the state. As we look deeper into the EOG scores specifically, we'll come back to the right side of the graph later, we start to look at our math proficiency. And this is in your snapshot, so it's just a little bit easier to read here on this slide. With the math EOG proficiency from 2013 to 2016, this type of a comparison is the type that says, let's look at the 3rd grade classroom, or let's look at the 4th grade environment, or let's look at the 8th grade classroom or environment, and see what's happening in that environment over time. So the students represented by each bar for a particular grade will be different students. It will be the 3rd graders from 2012-13 in that far left bar, and then the 3rd graders from 2013-14 in the next bar, and then the 3rd graders from 2014-15 in the next bar, and so on and so on. What this helps us to do is to see whether or not internally we're learning from past experiences and providing better outcomes for the next class. So that is an important piece of data. We also want to start looking at cohort trend data, and that's a little bit different from these traditional types of graphs. So this is something you would see probably in any school district, and it is good data for us to look at. When we're looking at the math EOG proficiency and I look at the 4th grade, that's exactly what we want to see year over year in any environment, that every single year we're learning more about the best way to teach this particular set of concepts, and and we're getting students to a point where they can express that proficiency over time. When I look at what's happening in the 7th grade bar, that's the one we're kind of like, oh, we're doing great. And then we do great again. So what we need to start looking at here is when do we introduce new curriculum? There's always going to be a dip when you introduce new curriculum. When do we have a teacher change? A school like ours, where we have 72 students at a particular grade level, a single teacher might be teaching all of that grade for a particular subject. And so there's risk in that if there's a bad year or a teacher gets sick or whatever it is, and it's a bad fit between the teachers and the students, that we could have a dip there. Well, we need to build our systems and processes that don't allow that to happen. So that if we do have a situation where there's a new teacher or where there's new curriculum, we already have a bevy of supports and resources in place to make sure that those teachers are supported and those classes are supported, and that we don't wait till the end of the year to see the outcome. We do those assessments throughout the year, look for those leading indicators, and make adjustments along the way. When we look at the reading proficiency for 2013-16, you're seeing somewhat similar results as to what we saw in math with a general performance trend in the upward direction. We're seeing 8th grade by way of example. If you're looking at just what does the data show us, for 8th grade you're seeing that it's sort of plateauing off. So is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I would say it's bad. We always want to keep growing a little bit each year, but is this a matter of cohort changeovers? So what I haven't talked about with either of these data sets yet is what are some of the assumptions that are inherent in these types of data sets or these types of graphs. One is there's an assumption that maybe teachers can impact it, and we did discuss that for a little bit. There is an assumption that the student cohort mix. It's just a whole different group of 3rd graders than any of our 3rd graders we've ever had before. We are a lottery process. We get who we get that kindergarten year, and we keep moving forward. Maybe that has an impact. It could be that there's curriculum changeover that I talked about, and it also could be that there's inconsistent application of the curriculum. Perhaps the curriculum is sound and solid, but one teacher follows it to the T and one teacher goes off track a little bit and that sort of thing. So we've got to build those systems and processes to prevent those things from happening. The next 2 slides are different from any data set I've shown you before, or probably any data set that you've looked at before, and there's a lot of assumptions inherent in this one. So I do caution us that when we're looking at these cohort proficiency trends in both math and reading for the 3rd through 8th grade, there's some assumptions that I made. I made the assumption that if you started in that particular cohort group in 2012-13, there was a changeover, that it was the exact same student group moving forward, which is a false assumption. There will be students who have moved away and new students who are coming off of the wait list. I've also made the assumption specifically in math that the proficiency in the Math 1 exam is relevant to the proficiency that we see in 8th grade through 8 exam. And then of course the final assumption in all of this is that the proficiency that we see in any one of those grade level EOGs is comparable to what we should expect going up and down the continuum. So all of that is because I know a lot of statisticians that will tell me that this is probably not the best way to declare data, but from a visual perspective, it really helps us to hone in on what's happening with our students over time. I apologize for the color palette. I tried everything I could to get these lines to be easier to distinguish from each other by putting the numbers on the left. Hopefully you can follow along. In 2012-13, we had students in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade sit for one of the EOG math exams. What I did here again, let's look at 6 at the very top line. In the following year, 2013-14, that group of students would have been 7th graders and participated in the 7th grade math EOG exam, and that shows you that sort of linear growth that they had. So if we're following that top line, the 6th graders from 2012-13 showed some improvement in proficiency rankings by 2013-14. Nothing drastic, something within the realm of statistical acceptance, might even be considered a plateau if you look at it closely. What we notice that is a trend that, while I try not to put value on it when we're looking at trends, it is a negative growth. When we look at their performance in the 2014 school year, as 8th graders, their proficiency dipped considerably. And then as we follow that same line over to 2015-16, we see, again, a little bit of a leveling off, if not slight dip. That's not the kind of line we'd like to see. We would like to see that we get to know our students better, that we identify their strengths and weaknesses better, that we identify instructional strategies better, so that each and every year more and more students become proficient over time until we hit that plateau of a median 85, 90, 95% proficiency, and we just hang out there. But ultimately, what you're trying to get to are lines that look a little bit more like what you see with the 3rd grade line, where it comes over to 2013-14 and has a little marginal improvement, and then jumps in 2014-15 and continues to go, as one of your colleagues has said, up and to the right. So for a graph like this, if the line is going up and to the right, that's what we're looking for. Again, these are lagging indicators, so these tell us what's happened at the end of the school year. So they're informational for us to look back in time and evaluate curriculum, look at placement of teachers, look at groupings of students, but they don't help us fix the problem for the student who was in that year where they dipped. And that's where we need more data so that we can help the student mid-year, mid-cycle, and get that line to never dip. When we look at the cohort proficiency trends in reading, it's a similar type of analysis. This one, however, there is no 9th grade equivalent to a reading exam, so we do stop with the performance in the 8th grade. Again, generally up and to the right. What's really wonderful to see is we had some amazing spikes with a couple of our cohorts, where in the 2012-13 school year, they were demonstrating something along the lines of a 50 to 60% proficiency and jumped as high as 85% proficiency in the very next year. Wonderful. Now we've got to go back and figure out what made that happen and do that again. And that's what's wonderful about these types of readouts. So the overall thing that we have noticed, or the overall trends that we've noticed, is that our math proficiency has had negative growth in 5th and 8th grade over time, that it has positive growth in 4th and 7th grade over time. Our reading proficiency has had negative growth in 3rd and 5th over time, and positive growth in 4th, 6th, and 7th over time. When we look at those cohort graphs, the last two that we just looked at, we have this varying positive and negative growth year over year. And we've got to stabilize that. We have to find ways to input instructional strategies that stop that from happening and keep us on that up and to the right general trend. What you don't see a lot of detail in here is about the science proficiency. It's administered in the 5th grade and the 8th grade, so it's very difficult to show that trend over time. But we do notice when we look at those individually that the general performance has been very positive and not neutral, but definitely growing. We're always up 80+%. When we take these trends and get past just
Assessments in 5th and 8th grade.
the assessments in 5th and 8th grade to show a linear relationship would be not fair. When we look at our areas for improvement for math, we need a comprehensive math program that has vertical alignment from grades K through 8. We have identified a math program and have been using it for the last 2 years. We need to take it to the next level and make sure that it's being implemented with fidelity. This is where we need to change our leadership strategy. With reading, we have a comprehensive writing program that's being recommended. As we continue to do research, we identify that writing about what you're reading has the strongest correlation for improving reading scores of any activity. Therefore, it's also an area where we're finding external evidence from admissions officers, etc., letting us know that our students' writing skills will always be an area for improvement. So starting that in kindergarten will actually help us make sure that our students are very well prepared for the advanced curriculum that they'll see when they get to the high school. We've used this year our Title I tutors to do some very targeted assistance with students in reading. We will evaluate that at the end of this year to see if that has had the benefits that we were hoping for. And if it does, then we will continue to use strategies like that where we have specific reading tutors. In addition, we're open to changing our enhancements schedule at the elementary level to include things like reading and writing as an enhancement to make sure that there's more and more opportunities for students to access this material. When we look at all areas, competency-based assessments are really the way that we need to go. For some that might, maybe it's a term of art, but what it means is that for us is that we start to identify very clearly what are the competencies that we expect or the skills that we expect, the I can statements. I can do this, I can do this, I can demonstrate this, I can show this. What are those statements that are for each individual level? What is that mastery level? And now we start reporting that way. This is going to require a little bit of support from our parents because we'll probably be changing the way that we administer report cards, particularly in the lower grades, so that we can have more honest conversations about where students are in the performance spectrum or continuum. So when you come in for a reporting period, it won't necessarily be an A or a satisfactory. It'll be, here's the list of competencies we've been working on, and we're up to here. And these 4 are the ones where we're meeting with. Once we get through these 4, you've mastered the curriculum for the year. Or there's some holes. So if you want to help us at home, could you come back and attack a couple of those if you can stay for tutoring, that sort of thing. So that will change not only the way that we assess our students, but also the way that we talk to our parents about our students' performance. And more importantly, students will be able to be advocates for themselves because they'll be able to see all of their I can statements, particularly in the lower grades, and they'll get more sophisticated as they get older number, but they'll be able to see, this is where I am, this is what I'm working on, this is where I'm trying to improve, so that I can make sure I meet my benchmarks so that I'm ready for the next grade or for the next level of curriculum. As we move into the next set of information, we're looking at very similar information with our DOCs. Again, one snapshot point in time slide that I'll give you to show that we are doing better than the state in both English 2 and biology. Math, again, that's a variable area. This is the one area where we slipped last year and we did not outperform the state in Math 1. When we look at our ESC proficiency trends over time, this is a little bit different because we clustered it by year. So in 2012-13 on the far left, you see a blue bar that goes up to about the 58% mark. That is the performance on English 2 for that year. If you look at that same color bar in 2013, 2014-15, and 2015-16, you see that there's a general upward trend in performance with a little bit of leveling off in 15-16. When we look at Math 1, we see that variable performance again. We have about a 38-39% proficiency in 2012-13, jumped all the way above 60%. I mean, from a percent improvement, it's almost doing twice as well as we had done the previous year, and then we see ourselves slipping back in 14-15 and making a marginal improvement in 15-16. When we look at our biology scores, those are generally showing that to the right trend, where each year students are performing better and better and showing greater proficiency on that particular assessment. Because there are just the 3 exams, we get to the overview slide pretty quickly. But with English 2, we talked about what we saw in the trends. When we look at the areas for improvement, for our English 2 and for our biology, it's going to really be making sure we continue to evaluate our instructional strategies and the curriculum that's being offered, and make sure that we're dipping down and rising up to see what the students are going to need in their higher years, as well as making sure that we're supporting teachers in the lower grades and helping students to master the concepts that they need to be proficient in these level courses. For Math 1, we really need a comprehensive middle school, high school math team approach to the program delivery. We've got some teachers that are able to really get great stuff out of students in certain classes and not in others, and they really need to get that stretched across the continuum so that as soon as they enter into the 5th grade, they're starting on that continuum for high school. We would really love to get to a point where our students have been given the support that they need so that they've at least accomplished Math 1 before they enter 9th grade, if not more. And in order to do that, we have to take a team approach to make sure that curriculum is being made available and that the space for the students to move around in their schedule is there. In addition, we're looking at alternate delivery models, particularly for Math 1. We know that for some students, it's the most foundational math course they're going to take, and it's really going to set the tone for all of the future math courses that they take in high school, and they might need a little bit more time. This year, and I believe last year, we offered it as a year-long course for some students, looking at assessment data to determine that they could use a little bit more time stretching that curriculum out over a year. We've also had other students that we put into that system, but we're looking at them now going, if we looked at that assessment data a little bit different, they probably would have done it in a single semester. We're fast-tracking through that program. So we're going to start looking at the previous assessment data to make those placement decisions, as well as determining whether or not supportive time and, for example, a curriculum assistance period, tutoring period during the school day would be helpful for some students to make sure they have even more time to work with that material.
So you just make a comment about like having students ready for Math 1 and Math grade as an example, right? So if we think, we mentioned before about metrics of success and what we can be, if we have some aspirational targets of curriculum and rigor and is it feasible that we should say maybe students should master Math 1 concepts by 7th grade or 8th grade? I mean,
Certainly, what we have to do is, we'll need to work, so if anyone didn't hear the question, it was whether or not we could come up with some aspirational goals that would say students have been given the supports and the instructional environments to be able to master Math 1, let's say, as early as 7th grade or 8th grade. Certainly, we're open to that, but we know that we are still working with students. So what we want to do is at least make sure that we're getting a half of a grade level up, and then we'll work on those full and 2 grade level jumps. But certainly we want to make sure that if a student enters into our school in kindergarten, that they have the ability to go at whatever pace they need to go at to be able to get where they can maximize their achievement, going back to our mission statement from before. We want to be able to make sure we create an environment where they can do that. We've tried. We've really tried to help some students accelerate in one area or accelerate in 2 areas or even grade skip. And those are all sort of very logistical ways to support a student. We really want to make sure that what's happening in the classroom is allowing for that growth so that we can maybe For me, this is aspirational visionary, break away from concepts of grade levels. I know that the state's not going to let us do that anytime soon. But get to a point where say, this is just your cluster group, and these are all the competencies you need to master before you move on to the next one, and as fast as you go is as fast as you go. We do want to also make sure we're paying attention to developmental milestones as well, so there'll be academic learning competencies we're looking for, as well as developmental competencies, because certainly at a certain age, you're not ready to read a lot. While that may be the curriculum for that particular course.
I just wanted to see if what I heard what you're saying about the fact that we say like math 1 in ninth grade doesn't mean that everybody's going to go through a stepwise function and in ninth grade they're going to take math 1. Is that we want to provide that flexibility for students based on learning ability?
There's a sequence of courses that are required to go through, but the pace at which they go through them should be able to tailor to the individual students' needs. Yes.
But we can do some tracking and projections where we are assessing certain concepts, not the whole class, as a competency. And if the student is in 6th grade and still has not met that particular concept, the projection is it's going to be hard for you to be ready for math 1 because you're still struggling with this foundational, and that can give us some early indicators in terms of, 6th grade, we need to focus more, not that you have to repeat the math or whatever, but it's generally particular concepts that they struggle with, not the whole round, class.
Which is why we like the idea of competency assessments versus grades, because a student can earn a C, technically be promoted and have missed entire concepts, and then be going into the next class and be expected to know those concepts because they completed the previous prerequisite course and be missing that. So we need
Especially in math, what I see in a lot of discussion with educators is public school is too shallow, especially with math. So it just a little bit of the concept when you actually need to go much, much deeper for them to be able to survive when they get to the advanced level. So they, fractions are my favorite because that's what, and yeah, they do a little, and then when they get into algebra, it's not that you can't do algebra because if you can't multiply fractions, you're not going to be able to do algebra. So that's where they just, it's almost textbook, the 5 concepts that they just don't have deep enough mastery of to be able to survive and start getting to upper level math. And that's where they struggle. So I think if we can keep pinpointing those early on.
And that would bring us actually to our next student data, because there's something that's really powerful about what's happening with our changeover from PS or the plan to the pre-ACT. And we'll get into that in a couple of slides. But the pre-ACT actually gives us results by competency, by student, and they give it to us in the fall of the year that they take the exam. So we can actually hand that right over to teachers immediately and say, this is how they performed on assessment questions about this particular topic. This is something that this particular student needs to go back and master or spend a little bit more time with. Or this is where they're showing off the charts performance. Does that match up with what you're seeing in the classroom? Yeah, provide those supports. As we look at ACT data, again, this is a bit of a lagging indicator, but this is more of a cumulative summative lagging indicator. Rather than looking at what competencies a student should have mastered in a particular grade, it's what am I ready for in college? And the way that I'm showing you the results of our ACT performance over the last several years is not to look at the scores that the student earned, but what the report told us about the percent of our students that were likely to earn a C or better in their first college course in one of these subject areas. What we see with English, somewhat stable performance, but we're not growing in that area. And unfortunately, the scale is not to 100, so you're seeing that we're peaking out around 55%. We would really love for that to be closer to 100. So when we're looking at 55 or so % of our students are showing that based on their performance in the ACT, based on the predictive nature of that particular assessment, that's how many of our juniors would project to be successful in an English level college course in the first year, freshman year. A couple of caveats with ACT performance data. It is not exclusive just to juniors. Sophomores take it, seniors take it. In addition, in 2012-13, we were very young high school, so the number of students participating in the exam has grown by leaps and bounds over the years. So the statistician in me is letting you know that this isn't really the most valid way to represent this data, but it does at least let us have an opportunity to look at some trends. With math, you see that variability that we've seen in all the other assessments we've evaluated. With reading, you see the consistency. You seeing in all of those assessments. With science, you see the growth we're seeing in the other assessments. What's most concerning to me is the all four category. On average, 10% of students assigned to new charter school that take this assessment are able to show that they are ready for college in all four of these subject areas. That's one thing. When we look at the pre-ACT data, again, this isn't scaled all the way up to 100. I think we're peaking out at about 35% on the way this graph is stretched. You'll see similar performance data. The STEM is interesting. This is a new element that's on the pre-ACT that's not yet on the ACT. And as we all probably could have predicted, this is going to be the area where we're going to be weakest because at the moment we don't have any engineering courses. Our technology is a growing program, as we witnessed earlier in today's meeting. But we've got some work to do here to make sure that our students are prepared and ready to participate successfully in engineering-related, technology-related coursework in college. And again, what's great about the pre-ACT data is we get this in the fall. And every single one of our sophomores took this assessment, which was 78 of all of them. So we have data on every single individual student. We have an individual score report early in the school year that we can then use to help us make decisions about scheduling and also give that back to teachers. It's not perfect as a leading indicator, but it's getting a little bit closer to what we're looking for in terms of having data in the school year that we can use to immediately support students with.
Just so clear, the ACT is delivered when?
The pre-ACT is delivered in the fall. The ACT is sort of, their scheduled dates all over the place, so whenever they sit for it.
It's within the calendar.
It's within the calendar year, yes. But the students can pick and choose. You can take it in the fall and the spring, you can take it in the summer, you can take it multiple times. This is just a reflection of an average that comes out from ACT when they take all of our test scores for that given school year. We sort of talked through all of the trends and areas for improvement already, but again, a consistent emphasis on math instruction is needed. Using these results to provide targeted support will be very effective. And while we never ever want to teach to a test, it certainly could be helpful for us to offer something like an ACT or SAT prep course. And I know we've offered that in the past, but do it in a powerful way. Take the results from the pre-SAT, take the results from the pre-ACT, and use that time as targeted instruction for students to master the competencies they're showing weakness in. The last set of data that we have prepared for you today resulted with the AP exam. I apologize, I know I should not make this slide, but I want you to see the data in graphic form. I know you can't read it, I know it's too small, even on my own monitor, it's almost impossible to read, so I've made a better version of it on the next slide. But what I wanted you to see is the total number of AP exams that have been available to students and how many students have participated in those exams since 2012-13. So if you flip to the next slide, it's a little bit easier to read because it's in tabular form. In 2012-13, we made available 3 different AP exams, which means we taught the curriculum. In addition, we had 24 students sit for those, 24 exams were administered across those 3 subjects for 19 different students. What this means is a handful of students took 2 exams, but not very many. Most students just took 1 of the exams during that period. In 2014, we had 9 different exams available, 2015, 7, and 2016, 8. So we're starting to see a stabilizing trend that somewhere between 7 and 8 different AP courses being offered in a given school year. We could probably make sure students can have access to a curriculum and sit for the tests. When you look at those bottom 2 rows, what I'd like to draw your attention to is the 2015-16 participation rates. While we went from 24 exams that first year to 75 exams administered in the final year, only 49 students sat for those 75 exams. What that means is more and more students are taking 2 AP classes a year versus just 1. To us, that's a sign of strength of the program, that students are feeling more confident in their ability to participate in the program overall and are not shying away from the challenge of taking 2 exams in a year or even 3. We are nervous when students try to sign up for 4. I'll be candid, 3 makes us a little twitchy. But looking at the students' assessment data, looking at their developmental milestones, and looking at the support that they have at home will really help us to make a collaborative decision on the right balance of that type of coursework for a student in a given school year.
In the future, not just percentage participation, but you're just start to give a percentage of like percentage of your students actually taking in college.
Gotcha. That's true, because looking at these, What's difficult is it's a combination of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, but we can break it down. Absolutely. As we look at what we are learning from our AP participation levels, and again, I look at participation levels as a different kind of data set because what this is telling us is which students are feeling confident enough to access the curriculum, which students feel prepared enough, or teachers feel that they're prepared enough to access the curriculum, and which students are actively engaging in this high-level curriculum. When we look at the areas for improvement, the predictability of course offerings is going to be critical to the success of this program. Because we are reliant on student participation, if one year I only have 2 students that want to take the exam, it's very, very difficult for me to offer a course for just 2 students. It puts a lot of pressure on the remaining teachers in the building to absorb the remaining 46 students that are paired with those 2 students. So if we can come up with a predictable schedule, perhaps certain classes are on odd years and certain classes are on even years, that would address the small nature of our campus and still keep that availability for students across their high school career. In addition, we're noticing that we're kind of stagnant in our math offerings. We've offered calculus AP and we've offered statistics, but we have yet to push the envelope of calculus BC. We're planning to do that for next year. In addition, our science courses have been limited to biology and environmental science because the facilities improvements, we've adding chemistry to that list, and certainly physics is not out of the realm of possibility. When we look at access to world languages and cultures, that's an entire category where we don't offer a single course. So we really love to see ourselves being able to push students into that Spanish 3 for an AP curriculum, or perhaps Chinese, or whatever it is that's going to meet the needs of the students here. But at this point, we're sort of leveling off with Spanish 2, and we don't have the ability to allow our students to even access the AP curriculum for a world language or culture. And we know that that would be very, very helpful for them as they move into their career path.
What is the average AP requirement for STEM courses like math from a college? Is it 4?
Usually 3 will get you exempted for some schools, and then you'll have to get a 4 or 5 to actually earn credit for the class. Some institutions will require a 5, it's like MIT or something along those lines. But generally, if it's a well-known university, they might look at a 3 and give you an exemption from the class, but not award the credit. But if you get a 4 or a 5, they'll award the credit. There are a handful of universities and colleges that will give you credit for the 3.
So basically,
We want them getting 4s and 5s. We want them earning 4s and 5s. The flip side of that, as a former classroom teacher who taught an AP curriculum, there is also another advantage for students who maybe earn a 1 or a 2 on that exam, and that when they enroll in the course in the college, they get an A. Because they've already been challenged with the curriculum once and they're seeing it for a second time, and they already have a confidence built up in that particular. So depending on the nature of the student, sometimes the 2's not all bad. But that's student specific. So I wouldn't dissuade a student from participating in the course if they weren't certain on what the outcome would be for the exam, because what they can learn from participating in the course will prepare them. When we look at average AP scores, again, a graph I should never show. I'll go ahead and flip it over to the next slide. What I did here is I thinned it out a little bit and only showed those exams that we offered more than once in that 4-year time span. Generally speaking, we're seeing that up into the right trend, but again, calculus, we see our normal variable math results. Environmental science, we see tremendous growth from the first year to the second year of administration. Biology, you're seeing continuous improvement. U.S. history, U.S. government, continuous improvement. We're leveling off a little bit with our psychology results, and we're leveling off a little bit with our English language results. So that lets us know we either need to work with our students differently, work on our identification processes to make sure that students are prepared. Because again, if we're not averaging something like a 3 or above, our students are probably not earning credit. When we look at AP performance trends, we sort of talked through those already, but when we look at the areas for improvement, again, a resource needs assessment. Now this one I do struggle to kind of do money. On a couple of these, we're looking for a facilities improvement, but we're also looking for ways to make sure our teachers have the materials that they need. If you're talking about science electives or computer science electives, they have to have access to the materials that the students would work with in a traditional lab environment. We can rent those, we can borrow those, we can be very creative on how we resource some of those elements, but having proper ventilation is something you just have to have in the classroom. When we talk about professional development for AP teachers, if you're not familiar, there are week-long programs for teachers who have never taught the course or maybe who've only taught the course for a year that allow them some deep immersion with professionals and university professors to help them master what the curriculum is, what the standards are, so they know exactly what it is that the students are expected to learn, in addition to giving them tips and tricks on how to deliver that instruction. Those courses are not terribly expensive, but they are week-long and they're in the summer, and it'd be nice if we could help our teachers to afford those programs. Looking at coordinating middle school, high school team approach. This is where I was first introduced to in terms of vertical alignment. If I have a desire to increase access to college level coursework, I need to make sure my students as early as 5th grade are being prepared for the rigors of what's going to be expected of them when they walk in that door. And so that's where we really want to make sure, again, that not only within content areas, but within writing specialties and things along those lines, we're setting the stage so that a student in the 5th grade is already learning the habits and the practices of how to write. By way of example, I know a lot of our middle school students are starting to use their Chromebooks or their computers to type their papers, and they're not handwriting a lot of their essays anymore. That's okay, until you're given a timed assessment where all you have is a book and pencil. They've lost the ability to write quickly within their brain and write it down on that assessment booklet. And so we may actually be hindering their ability to perform well in assessment simply because of the way the test is administered. It has nothing to do with how they think or how they process, that they're used to being able to type out their critical thinking and their problem solving and the way that they answer these questions. So simple little things like that can be implemented early on to make sure we're doing a mixture of both what they need to learn for the technological world that they're entering into and that they live in, but also being prepared for the ways that they're going to be challenged to show proficiency. The next slide is to let us know that we are looking for additional data sources. I've already made the note to look at our GPAs and grade level or grade assignments for students. One that I'd like to draw particular attention to is our college and career promise data. At this point, we've had limited participation with the program. We're doing some outreach to find more and easier ways for our students to access this curriculum. But this is a college level course in which the student earns college credit immediately there. I've had some conversations with several of you, actually, even in the room, that AP is the hardest way to get college credit. It really is. There are a lot of benefits to the coursework in terms of what it does, because you've got your teacher that's here and it's going to help you to learn and master those skills and be a good support network, someone that you may even already be familiar with from previous courses. You're going to go through the rigors of college level coursework in a high school setting, and there's some benefits there. But if you don't perform well on that final assessment, all in and of itself, while it's on your transcript that you participated in the class, the universities will award the credit back to the 3-4-5 discussion we had earlier. When you're looking at something like the CCP program, you're looking at a program where the student is participating in the course authentically as a college student, and they're going through the paces as a college student. They're doing the homework assignments, they're doing the lab assignments, they're participating in the classroom discussions just the way that they would in a college environment, because they're in a college environment. And so at the end of that course, they're going to earn the credit as a result of their performance in the class, and it won't be based on a single assessment. It'll be based on the cumulative body of work that they put forth during the class. So we want to make sure we have both of these options available to our students. And what we're trying to look at here is how do we make sure that the classes that we're guiding our students toward are the ones that they're going to need for their future success. We've had some that'll pick an interesting class, and that's great, and that'll help them get some general elective credit, but when they're ready to transfer, it may or may not help them complete their major coursework. So we want to make sure that if we are sponsoring our students and encouraging our students to participate in these programs, that they're not only learning from the experience, accumulating that college credit, but also making sure it's something that get on the path. I hate for a student to have sat in classes for 2 years, earned 12 to 16 credits, and have to essentially start from scratch because you didn't help them figure out that they need a biology for an engineering class or something along those lines.
And just for the people that listen to the recording, the college career promise data, if they sit through the class in a CCP, that only guarantees qualification for the North Carolina college system.
No. Actually, we haven't
Every
actually.
independent school except for Duke has an independent comprehensive articulation agreement with the North Carolina Community College System, so they all take the same credits as transfer.
I mean, obviously,
I mean, you can't guarantee Harvard, or they're going to take it, they may look, pick and choose, but early college is a great example because a lot of their students go out of state, and the counselors there say they've never had any problem with the school saying they won't take the credits.
But as part of our partnership with parents, it would be on us to say what colleges are you looking at. Let's call them ahead of time. Let's see what credits they will transfer so that when they are enrolling in those courses, their courses are well.
They tend to look at college system, like 58 community colleges, that there's a lot of standardization and feel comfortable taking the course. And of course, a lot of schools, as soon as they understand that we have the comprehensive articulation agreement with UNC, they're like, well, UNC is going to take it, I'll take it. So, I mean, but it's not a guarantee. You're going to have private schools like here internally do picks and choose. They every year they refuse to sign the agreement.
Transparency.
They take some, but they want to be free to take what they want to take.
So in future iterations of the report, we'll try to get it down to where we're more on the one page because we talk through the different kinds of data, and in the future we'll be able to sort of give you that snapshot of improvements or only talk to you about new data that we're looking at. But really the last slide that I prepared for you today is the moneymaker slide. It's really where do we want to go from here. And so while I hate to read to someone who can read for themselves, I do want to hit the highlights. What we've realized for our assessments is that we need our own comprehensive sets and assessments that give us leading information about student performance so we can be a collaborative partner in the learning process, not only with the students, but with the parents. In addition, we want to make sure that we identify very clearly what those core competencies are that we believe at News are essential for promotion to the next level or the next curricular experience. And by that I mean we should not settle for whatever the base standard is. If we are preparing our students for college prep and honors curriculum in the high school, that starts in kindergarten. We need to be honest with our students and parents and make sure that we're preparing them for the rigors of the advanced level coursework as early as possible. In addition, we need to make sure we're participating in training and development, and I do not mean sit-ins, where we all get in a room together, watch some sort of a show, watch some sort of a presentation, take a few notes and say, well, that was fun, where's the cookies and the punch, and go home and take credit for all of the credits that we earned so we can put that towards our certifications. I mean, where we're very, very intense, we have crucial conversations, we have ugly conversations, we have powerful, positive conversations, and we make very prescriptive action plans as a result that have accountability, timelines, and that's it. We need to continue to monitor our performance on standardized tests because they are a lagging indicator. We don't want to lose track of where we're going because of where we're headed, but we also don't want them to be the end-all be-all. They don't tell us enough about our students. As far as curriculum delivery goes, I've talked about this a little bit earlier. I really think the school should be organized into 3 separate learning centers. We spent this entire year focusing on our K-12 campus, making sure that we all understand we're a resource for each other, making sure that we get some policies sort of standardized across all of the grade span. They're serving 13 grades, close to 900 students. It's a business, and we've got to make sure the rules are the same from one room to the next. But now it's time for us to get down to identifying which competencies and which areas of improvement are needed in those smaller groups. I use the term learning center because I think we need to figure out what we want to call it. We are a News charter school, but then you say it's the elementary school, it's the middle school, it's the high school. There's too many schools. We need a different term. But I'm going to call them learning centers for now. Hopefully that's not what they are because it's just too many words and too many letters. But that would be focused on that coordinated and persistent vertical teaming and curriculum alignment. Again, I mentioned that K-1 really needs to partner together, K-4 really needs to partner together, but that would sort of call our elementary or lower grades learning center. And then 5-8, we're going to take those 5th graders and push them up and promote them into and mix them in with that upper level curriculum in middle school. And then 9th through 12th grade, standing as that hallmark capstone experience. In addition, we want to create and implement a phased implementation plan with a target of full implementation across the K-12 campus by 2021, meaning that if we insert ourselves at specific grade levels in the first year, getting those competencies aligned, grow that up the next year, and grow that up one more year, by 2021, I feel like we can very successfully implement all of the competency-based reporting and assessments fully across all 13 grades.
Soon I commend you on the report. However, I encourage you to set a faster track for 3 years for full implementation. I understand why you're doing it, but and it's partial. Through it, certainly, we want to be here yesterday. It just got me back here. Just got here one time. Very good.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the Executive Director for the comprehensive report she has just presented. And I would like to propose a motion that offers her our full support behind the recommendations that she I'd like to give her the permission to carry out these recommendations moving forward.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. I think Susan's giving us all the discussion. So, it was thorough, very informative, and it was comparative. It was interesting, to look at some numbers from a few years ago, during the turnover of turnover versus where we're at here. In the last couple of years, what we've had. So, I say that all to say, any further discussion, motion, say again?
Just that the board expresses its full support for the recommendations that she has made. And allowed her to move forward with those recommendations, short of having the expenditures approved by us per our previous rules.
Short of expenditures.
And I'd just like to add one thing. From a board perspective, this is what we've been asking for a long, long time.
Hallelujah.
So the vertical integration, the K-12, so hallelujah.
Full support should be all out.
And you know, we just haven't had the right people on the bus yet, so hopefully we'll strive
Full
to
support to
move
move
forward.
where we were 3.5 years ago. We're very confident we will. Appreciate what you brought, and your team. This is what we were, we're excited about it. We've been passionate about it. We're glad to have someone who loves people as passionate as we are for achievement and superior results. So, all in favor? Let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimous.
Can I give you a water?
Let's see. Committee reports. Finance.
So the Finance Committee can meet, Mr. Chair. We still show a tracking of 122,000 for 9862 surplus. Looking towards the end of the year, I think it's,
I'm sorry. I know it's all
And-
good.
and so we have the line of credit paid off. That is done, and we'll have laid up for 30 days by the next board meeting.
No, it's already, yeah, that's right. Well, 22, so we're on
Yeah.
60 days, zero balance.
And so just to reiterate is, based on working with the auditor, we need to end the year at about somewhere between 140 to 150 surplus to basically clear all of the audit findings. So we're comfortable we're going to get there with that. In the previous approval, we already approved the fiscal policy. Good work to the school administration with the finance committee on getting that approved and through. Thanks for the comments we
I
have.
noticed the topics that were covered, it was all.
And I think just to reemphasize back to the fundraiser topic for those that watch the recordings, it just provides additional resources for us to accelerate what Ms. Williams just put in front of us faster. So I think that's the anchor point that we as a board need to get behind that support is if we want acceleration of plan, that's one way we can show support.
Very good, and as always, about a year or 13 months, I committee, we roll it to the city, so very good.
Motion to accept the fiscal policies and procedures handbook.
Oh, my fault.
Thank you for the point of order.
Personnel, that was earlier mentioned, we have one vacancy as far as the actions to report. We have that actions to close session. Yeah, we will need to go to closed session.
look forward to working very closely with you in the implementation. And Dave, it may not be as quick as you want because changes at this level need to be thorough, well vetted, we need to put it. I have confidence in Susan. But what I'm saying is when you turn a corner, you have to sometimes take it slow. Oh, I know the engineer. We don't want it derail.
Resource development, the nomination process.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Skip to the reverse raffle because nomination committee is actually board development, not resource development. Sorry, in place of the facilities committee, the standing committee should be board development and nominations committee as a subcommittee.
Check resource.
No. The standing committees are finance, personnel, audit, resource, and board development, right? So, sure, I mean, we can have a facilities committee report if we need one, or if the facilities committee would like to make one. But the 5 standing committees do not include facilities.
Further request and recommendation, first update.
Yeah, so, today was the first kind of official close. They don't have the updated numbers. Susan had mentioned that we're somewhere around 150.
I confirmed 148 have been
Yeah.
turned in.
No,
No, what I mean is there's a stack list that hasn't been counted. We ran out of time to count.
Yeah, so look,
from 30 days left, that's incredible.
yeah, so I just keep re-emphasizing this, when we go out and talk to the stakeholders, what we just heard Ms. Podium present, that needs to be the message that we're trying to accelerate. And it's going to encompass all things from facilities to staff development and curriculum. And so there's a lot of excitement. Naturally, it's something new. It's a school-wide event. There's going to be some bumps along the road. But so far, I couldn't be happier with Eric and the team that he's working with and trying to really rally us together. The PTO and the Booster Club chipping in to help bring up with the silent auction, pulled off that event. So it'll come together, and regardless of where we land at the end of the day, it'll be a lot further than we've been before. So look forward to seeing that continue, and we'll keep pushing through over the next few weeks.
Ronnie would say this, but I think he's already sold it. So.
21 for the record.
I knew what he was going to say. He won't say. No, he didn't say 20. I knew he wouldn't say that.
No, in all seriousness, I'll tell you the interesting thing is I've never been one to subject. I really have. I mean, it just been. I say this time I want to teach my kids about participating in something that's for the good of themselves too. What was most interesting, you go out and talk to people in the community, everybody has other business. It was interesting how much I had to work on my messaging about what New Charter is, which is just we say that people don't understand it, but I think we're going to learn a lot that this fundraiser is as much about community outreach as it is raising money.
You know what, it's about outreach within our house, because I think there's a lot of people in our school that don't understand. I think this fundraiser needs to become a foregone conclusion part of our culture. You participate in this fundraiser every year, period. Before you buy candles, before you buy cookie dough, anything, this fundraiser needs to be the focus of the entirety of the organizations in the school every year.
And I think we tried to reverse raffle because it was what we thought we could pull off this year. Frankly, as we look towards next year, based on what we learned, we may take a different approach. And then we threw a raffle thing, but I agree with Jimmy wholeheartedly that we need to establish that part of coming here is there's a giving effort, and that will be coordinated by the school, and it will be an annually run effort, and it will go through.
Somehow we need to couple that with some kind of education program. You know what I mean? I don't know quite how to put my finger on it exactly.
Well, to pack it on point, if we're going to execute on the strategy presented, there's going to be an education campaign.
Yeah.
It's part of coming to the charter school It's not all tradition, from how we assess our students to what we expect from our students, what we expect from our parents. That's going to have to be part of the comprehensive change management. So, with that,
I will share a little story that I think things are changing, and that awareness is getting out. And I honestly will credit Susan with a lot of it. I was speaking today with Mr. Baker from Triple S, who was at the meeting. He's partnered with News because of their proximity to one another. He was so worried that the awesome Miss William was not at the meeting. And I believe he texted her saying, I'm at this meeting, were you invited? And so afterwards, I was saying to him, well, they're not having any CCP classes on campus, that's why she wasn't at the meeting. And he's like, oh, we're partners. I want to do so much with Miss William. She's awesome. I want, our two schools to really form a partnership. Everyone knows that would have happened years ago. So I, a year later. So anyway, I'm listening to him and just saying, wow, what a difference a year has made, and just his excitement in working with Susan. And that was very heartwarming to hear that, because a lot can happen with our neighbor across the street, and he feels the same way, and I think that's very impressive. Looking out for Susan.
Facility, Chris is saying, I'll just say one thing, it's kind of exciting. I'll let Chris do the rest of the report, but I get to say exciting. When we purchased this property, we knew that the road was going to be wide. And so now they're acquiring, and we paid for that portion to the church. We had no idea that we would be approaching about $256,000 right away. Now here's the catch. Here's the catch. We have to use it for some sort of physical improvement. And you mentioned the chemistry, the chemistry lab. We may go over that. That's what I'll let Chris take over here.
as one of the things that, in meeting with Susan and the staff, and y'all know, is that we're just basically wearing this building out. We're wearing this building out, we're wearing the gym out, because we just don't have a lot of space. And it's new, so we have wrestling in here, or whatever else in here. It's just, we're using the space for other things that it was intended for. So, we need, and I think Susan has addressed this in prior meetings, of starting to bank money to set aside for cosmetic fixes and just normal wear and tear fixes. But in the meantime, we also want to start, we kind of internally said we want to be moving dirt each year. Okay? And we did that with the new wing, we did that with the new parking lot. We've kind of done something each year, probably sometime over the summer we'll have the driveway cut, hopefully within calendar year 2017, hopefully. What is our next big project? And a group of us met over lunch just to kind of discuss the offer from the state, as well as how can we use that. Again, it's wise for us not to buy down our debt. We can't use it for curriculum or something like that. It has to stay within the facilities. The task has been given to the staff to figure out how we can juggle moving trailers off, doing things, start building education cottages. In meeting with staff, the preliminary, and I say preliminary, this is just one of these things that we're thinking about doing, and Jimmy is getting us up proposal, is basically where the kindergarten trailer is, a 3 modular, first grade now, it used to be the kindergarten trailer, put a multi-purpose, it has to be called a gym, because of But we're also looking at then, we just looked at that because we got some preliminary costs back.
We'll take out the videos and the.
Well, hang on a second, I'm building to that. We started just looking at trying to figure out where we can put this multi-purpose facility gym. And we kind of stifled where we can place it. And also, we want to be cognizant of, we've got a very nice building here to step down our buildings and we want to affect the main campus of what we hopefully eventually build out. But anyway, we're building a half gymnasium where the kindergarten room is. And then as we were sitting in the kindergarten room, or first grade camp, but then we were saying, well, what can we do to try to start moving off some of these other things as well? And then we said, what we just combine and build basically a full classroom building as well as an auxiliary gym together to be able to move off the, now the cafeteria, yes, with the media center now and the kindergarten trailer. So the point is that there's going to be a time that we'll probably have to go without, or electives will have to be squished for using common space. Talking with Jimmy, Jimmy Boykin, if we started this process, we haven't gotten the prices back yet for full classroom and gymnasium, but we need to start that in December. Right after Christmas. We talked about it. I gave it we want to be open by August 15th. We tried to start backing it up, and we were thinking we could revise it during spring break. He said that's financially impossible. He said just with weather and unknowns. He said there's no way. He said so what we need to do is figure out what we can do with that space for 6 months, basically from January to the end.
Big, I mean, classroom, talk about placing.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. 3 classrooms and the media center.
What Susan said she would do is she would put in maybe electives instead of classroom, actual classroom. She put electives in there to keep the students in the classroom. So we wouldn't disrupt the students during the year.
Right.
So was that this building on the master facility?
No, this is something completely different. I mean, in the sense that, well, I take that back. There was a gym, auxiliary gym in the master facility, but obviously we can't afford a gym. It's full gym, not a full gym. But with the success of the wrestling program, we're cheerleading with all the other activity, plus the space that we're talking about putting in, it uses dual purpose. Pick up during ecliptic weather. We can stage kids in there and get them out.
It's like a basketball floor.
It's a half, it's
With no.
exactly,
seats or anything like that.
exactly. Yeah, it's roughly about 50 building. So,
Well, there's also, we had some discussion about, for example, band and some of our stuff that are in the modules in the room. That's a problem because there's sound acoustics, there's none of that. So basically saying within that space for that media center and those 3 first graders, maximize the usage of that space for whatever she needs to execute on what she just presented.
now, the other thing that we just discussed, and I know that how you're a big fan of athletics, but it's not, it's not necessarily for athletics, even though it is. It's really a multi-purpose room because we're wearing out our nice buildings. Was that, yeah. Is that, with the $250,000, do we want to, how can we parlay that and try to raise another $200,000 to $300,000 to build the next building? So that's kind of where we are. But it still doesn't address the question of the problem of wearing out the gym.
We can do that.
Going forward a little bit more and tear.
Nothing's gonna make it back, that's the whole purpose.
Yes, it's cool, yeah, right, but I don't think this room was ever intended, so you do not think we could set up a wrestling match in here?
Oh, not here, no.
We can build a building competing with the way the gym was for a whole lot less when we can do a project like this. But we're talking about $6 million versus $1 billion kind of thing.
Or 800,000.
And we can get rid of 2 modular units in the lease payment on that.
As well as save the efficiency.
So we're trying to maximize the use without having, like Chris said, without having to pony up for the 250 and really, because here's the deal. You know, we might can do a big project, we still gotta have the students. We gotta have the bodies paying for that project. We just really don't have.
Well, that's what I'm thinking in terms of, I mean, either way is fine, but we may want to consider what could become a revenue generating room. And if you want to grow to get more bodies that will increase your revenue, that's simply classrooms.
Right.
So,
Right. That was something we thought the 4 classrooms plus the office and workspace in one, nice unit. One big building.
Because the cash flow, I think the payment on the wing that we, over 40 years, is something like $12,000 a year for the classes.
We budgeted
So that cash flows it right there. I mean, it's something just ridiculously cheap over a long period of time. So if we can do that, it does allow us to cash flow to both.
Yeah. So, as treasurer, I will tell you, I would strongly discourage any kind of big capital expenditure like we've done here. We just heard a presentation that we're going to go through a couple of years of re-angling, re-pivoting. With that comes some degree of risk. You said it, you make changes, you're going to take some hit. So I think this is a balanced, conservative approach, but yet it's still moving forward. And also, I wasn't a fan of, we could go cheap in the middle of the section here. I think that's short-sighted because that really takes away from your future ambiance as we grow and we build up those reserves like we've committed to with the Charter Advisory Board. What I will say is those facility usages have to align with the plan that Susan just presented.
Except for the fact that aren't these funds earmarked, you can't use them for curriculum development.
No, I mean the actual facility itself. The task for her is to say, how are you going to maximize the use of that space to achieve what was just presented, we just approved?
But the key thing is like we put in a science lab, but we didn't have forward thinking to put in an end.
Right.
I mean, that's.
I thought we had a lot of classes.
Yeah.
so does this have to be expended in a certain amount of time? I mean, what is the purpose of saying we need to move dirt every?
No, it's just, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a building, it's just, we want to show our stakeholders, using a Rodney term, that we're progressing a little bit every year. It may not be anything more than just like a parking.
It may be replacing the underpinning.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't necessarily show progression. Just
No.
that's tough.
Well, but the thing is, I understand that, but the point is that it showed, I think people look at it and they've got there's a plan of moving forward. Because there were people that didn't think we could build this.
Yeah, but then, Chris, that's a show.
Well, I'm all about show.
I know, that's why I continue to challenge you
So
on
it's
that.
don't
When
say no.
things on the inside need to,
Trust me, I've got photographs of us being in a barn during our planning stages, so I know where we came from.
The most important thing, in sales, when we sell is education. We have to have that right, or it doesn't matter if we have the nicest building ever, because we don't have the education piece part of it, we don't have the academic piece, they're not going to come to this first school. And so you've got a year, basically, to kind of shore up our next year and a half, kind of really shore up our offering.
But are we providing quality education? We got band in a trailer next to other classes down the road. We've got, it goes hand, I understand what you're saying.
We just can't outpace our important building.
Right.
That's not the right thing. So I think this would probably build $1 million, multi-purpose gym with 4 classrooms, we still get to put people in the classroom. So that would cash flow.
And it would save money.
Well, I saw the other day, we were driving by previous and there was a long line. It's like, why don't they build a restaurant? Why? Because they don't need to, because there's still a long line.
Oh, they're written salary in the back of my property.
They just, because, well, in their mind, they're actually, the food is good and it's good enough for them to stand in line. is all important, but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it's what a student learns, whether you're in a barn, if it's quality instruction, somebody's gonna be in line to go there.
So, with this particular, with this building, would we be able to add on?
It's right.
I'm sorry, Paul.
In a following year, would we be able to add on another set of classrooms? I mean, we've had the flexibility with the gym to go to both sides. Would we be able to?
No, not in that space there, because there's the existing infrastructure, electrical infrastructure back there. So we're kind of landlocked between the front driveway and the circle driveway.
Right.
If you go out there, there's planter boxes, and then there's 3 electrical boxes. That's kind of the brains for the entire, everything goes into those 3 block boxes and then spreads out.
Okay.
So this is just one of those, and it would be in keeping with the, it wouldn't be over here because of aesthetics.
Right.
It would be over
But also, from aesthetics point of view, you could always retrofit it down the road if someone absolutely had to deal with it.
Right.
Well, it would be in keeping with the existing gym.
Yeah.
And it would look very similar, you know, it would look,
Right.
versus putting it over here like I said.
Well, here's the thing, is that we're like heating on a house with the oven door on. I mean, that's what we're trying to save money because we can't afford the gas, so we'll cut off the electric, and then we'll have the door open in the kitchen to heat the house. And so it's not the most efficient.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's just exciting to be able to toss around different. One
And
thing I will throw out there for Angela is that if you have that level of commitment for robotics, they're gonna move all the way through high school, and high school robotics means you need field center, and that's space.
But we have a robotics room, we just call it.
Well, that's the point.
Those things forward thinking.
That's the point I want to make here, is
They
like,
can do it for brand new athletic field house.
if we don't have to, we have to name it gym because of fire code.
Right.
We just need to understand there's multiple use cases, and we want to defer to our decision to make the best use of it, for sure.
Right. Oh, and we are working with, trying to negotiate with the state for sidewalks and other improvements along.
That was not.
They would not do that, but if we can figure out how much the sidewalks cost, then maybe it would bump up the asking price of the land and do it ourselves with the additional money.
When we cut the street through at the back, and it goes over to the other street, is it just gonna be circled out, back out?
There's gonna be a stoplight, from what I understand, in front of the doctor's office.
Okay. That's all I have.
I'm glad.
Yeah, we need any kind of motions to authorize them to keep doing whatever they're doing. If so,
Unfortunately, it's just more or less we're the tenants, and the facilities group is the, that's why we can't co-mingle the funds and help them. So it's just kind of, if we can reduce this board's rent and electric bill, building to building, then that's what we're doing.
And that lines up with the Vanguard, leasing expires, so it's perfect timing.
I've got 2 items left on the agenda. The nomination process. Just an update, received 3 inquiries / nominations. No resumes at this time.
just point of order, we should, I'm not sure that we're using the correct terminology. I think we should be asking for applications to start with, and then the nominations are actually provided to the board by the nomination committee after the interview process. So maybe there's some misunderstanding there.
Well, if it's we can say that it's a letter of inquiry, then we can send the actual application, which I'm looking for those forms.
No, I just want everybody to think that they had to find somebody else to nominate them to apply for a board position.
Nominations, kind of.
That's not.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, last time we did it was called the nomination form, so just write the check.
Well, but it's an application form, but the nomination committee makes the
last year's call for nominations. Everybody feel that?
It's not on the website.
Online. Oh, they found it.
Good, awesome.
They have the letter and everything that you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I can fill out really.
Like, I found out better, I went online, and I decided, and went and deleted all the stuff and saved it.
Oh, that's wrong, but for sure.
Okay, then.
So we just get back with them to say you
Well,
have to
I
fill
thought the
out
intent was to take nominations and then send the application. We did ask for a resume with the nomination.
It's an application and resume to apply for a board position. And then the nomination committee just filters through them with the interview panel and brings the nominations to the board.
Okay, so we've got that updated. I just want to give you the numbers. At this time, application process / nomination process is still running through March 24th, which will be right before the next board meeting, which time we'll probably give you a full update of who we intend to bring in for years ago. Process is the same as last time. Any questions on the board application nomination process at this time? We haven't even gotten into the details of how many, what we need, all that. That's, I think,
I would refer the chair to the bylaws to check the process.
so any other questions? Athletic policy. We have a athletics eligibility policy in your packets.
I've already seen it. I got my hand delivered.
I believe this was, this is an update, discussion,
The finalization after it's on to the Iowa Athletic Association develop particular clarification.
if there's any discussion, or anything we need to clarify in the last month's discussion. Athletic policy.
Yeah, there really wasn't a report last month because there were still some pending questions that we had to have answered by the High School Athletic Association, so this would be actually the first report. Yeah, so the athletic committee met, I guess, because the previous athletic policy was outdated and completely unclear, and it did not appear to be being applied. This is just much clarified.
No, I was just wondering, like, I haven't gone and looked at what's the major changes in this one versus what was before. It seemed the first time.
The policy before was about 3 lines long. It referred to C averages in high school as opposed to GPA averages. There were no references to weighting. There were no references to the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. There were no references to eligibility periods as required by law by the state. There were no references to
In summary, the previous policy was not compliant
pretty much.
with the NCHSAA regs, and we have joined the NCHSAA since the previous policy was implemented.
And we went to an AP Honors High School curriculum since the previous policy was enacted also.
I think the other change was just administratively, we were relying a lot on progress reports, and this takes that out of fixing the report card. Administratively makes it easier to report, and it makes it more.
Highlighted changes are, highlighted changes are, you can have a D as long as you have a 2, but you have to have a C in all classes.
And weighting is mentioned, and you can't have a failing grade at all, whether you have a 2.0 GPA or not.
Progress report was using, not even really,
Motion approved.
there's not any other discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from the vote because I'm the only board member school athlete.
Having heard no further discussion, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Conference champ.
Conference champion. First freshman.
All opposed, like sign. All make the motion.
I second.
Motion passes unanimous. Our new athletic eligibility policy would suggest that we get this out and made public as soon as possible because it will take effect also next school year. Further policy that raised this spring semester will determine eligibility for the fall. Okay. Any other business? Any new business? Go ahead.
That's all I've got.
New business?
Regarding the graduation speaker, does that need to be voted on?
You got one?
Well, I've been speaking to our congressman about the possibility of getting some input.
I got somebody's mom on my
Well,
side.
the school has to write a letter to somebody, it's not Trump, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, I didn't know if it's somebody political, we need to get a letter to them, and I did not know if we needed to do that. We gotta have it from the school, saying this is our history, this is our mission, this is, just kind of the bullet points of white pen. Yeah, I just
Letter to
our congressman.
Get the Secretary of Education.
be more
That's
specific.
who we're checking to get,
Education for the state.
the nation.
That's who he really votes in business.
Well, let's say Andrew Devo.
You're the target school vote.
I'm not going to cancel my inquiries then.
Well, no, it's a slim to none proposition, I mean, but, the thing is that if we've got to, I've checked, and they say we've got to ask,
Where there are other options, but.
do what you want. I was like trying to think of who we can get, and
You never know unless you ask.
that's right.
But I'm only one vote, there's the Gloria also. That's your
I dig into people's history.
Well, that's why I'm asking, I don't want to go out, but everybody thinks, do we want to invite the governor, do we want to invite the former, I don't know, who was in charge of the speaker?
Why don't you be in charge of it? No, your daughter's graduated.
Jason Aldean's drummer on the hook, okay, except that day he's going to be across the country doing something else. I got Scotty McCreery's mama working on Scotty McCreery for me. I'm not going to stop
They
doing
can't
it.
let us know.
He's on the road until mid-March. We're May 19th, so he doesn't think he has anybody, anything to say that a high schooler would want to hear. And I corrected her really quick. No, I corrected her really quick that, he had to write my flash to his face.
You gotta ask.
Make sure it was on her foundation first, right? He doesn't.
Can we submit a slate of recommendations to our ED and let her make a recommendation back, please?
Yeah, but everybody's still up in the air.
Let's make a recommendation of it, Susan.
We just need to give a letter, not work.
I'm not gonna say it.
Make a motion, we go into closed session.
And just to let y'all know, I'd like to mention, in efforts to ensure that our high school students are prepared for next year and that it's timed very closely with our lottery on March 25th, so you know, we're going to have an all-day Saturday high school registration workshop. Our thinking is let's get the families in here with us on a Saturday without all the distractions, let's go through transcripts, let's look at scheduling, let's look at assessment data, et cetera. In addition, we'll capture any of our new high school students who were recently selected through the lottery on March 16th, and we'll get them before we get too much further into the semester and they start. We just wanted to have a big, this is the day, come on, you'll have your first chance at electives. That's where, but certainly we'll work with them during the late to after.
Make a motion, we go into closed session, to discuss personnel matters.
Second. Second.